Shibori is a general Japanese term for ways of dyeing fabrics through the use of resists. As felters, we are familiar with using resists to create shape, texture, and pattern on our felt. In a similar manner, a variety of shibori techniques can be used to create shape, texture, and pattern in our felt with colour. The root Japanese word shiboru means to wring, squeeze, or press. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Shibori isn't specifically from Japan. Many cultures from around the world have discovered similar techniques for the embellishment of cloth. In Southeast Asia, batik is wax resist, palangi is gathering and binding resists, and tritik is stitching resists. We will concentrate on the Japanese methods. While shibori has developed in Japan to be a very exacting process, the results are not always identical. As we will discover, there are many mitigating factors that will influence the outcome. For example, we will be using botanical dyes from our Australian natives on felt. This is not something that happens in Japan, and as we know, there is always a certain level of unknown in felt making despite observing all the technical mores. Our journey through these techniques will be diverse and surprising. In general, shibori techniques can be categorised into 4 broad areas: binding, stitching, folding, and wrapping. Within these broad terms, multiple techniques, styles, patterns, and uses for shibori have developed over the century throughout the various eras and epochs of Japanese culture and history. As with most societies, the development of cloth and clothing goes hand in hand with signifying status, rank, and position within that society. Originally for the elite and powerful, shibori pattern cloth eventually became available for all levels of society as mass production techniques on lesser quality cloth became the norm. Sounds familiar? The haute couture of the modern world is copied and mass-produced for all using cheaper fabrics and with less detail. The oldest existing pieces of shibori come from a tomb built in the year 418 AD in western Liang in China, which exhibit binding as a resist method. More pieces from another tomb at the same site, but dated 683 AD, show stitching as a resist method. The oldest pieces in Japan are amongst the possessions of Emperor Shomu, preserved in his Sosho-in in the grounds of the Todaiji Temple in Nara, which houses the Great Buddha. Emperor Shomu died in 656 AD and donated his belongings to the temple. The pieces of shibori cloth have the 7-tied luminaries pattern, representing the sun in the centre, surrounded by the moon and planets, a stitched linked rings pattern, and the bound half-dot pattern. Through our Discovery Days program, we will explore many of the shibori techniques from each of the 4 general categories to give you a base from which to experiment and develop your own designs that complement our beautiful felt techniques.